It is Man-Thing Monday, all you mentees, so, actually, on second thought, I'm probably gonna rename that segment. Anyway, today, I'm gonna give you all an advanced look at the Man-Thing Omnibus from Marvel Comics, so, please stay tuned. And welcome back, everybody. Before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market on May 26th, and then a couple of weeks later in the book market. So what we're looking at here is the direct market cover by Frank Brunner, and here on the left-hand side is the standard edition cover by Ariel Olivetti. So I'm going to be doing a comparison. This is my original printing, and then this is the new printing. So we'll be doing a comparison of the internal artwork here in a little bit and how the book folds over, but just wanted to showcase what the differences were in the newer printing and the original printing. So the original printing, it looks like they just used the, what I like to call the generic white on black titles, where here they're actually using the font from the comic book. So in the newer printing, it looks like they have the font. And honestly, looking at both of these, the newer printing looks thicker than my original printing. And I noticed the same thing with the Roger Stern Spider-Man. But the picture down here at the bottom is different. I'm assuming for the standard edition cover, the spine artwork is going to be similar to this one here from the original printing. And then in the back, here are all the covers that are collected within these books. The font up at the top is a little bit bigger here. As a matter of fact, the pictures are a little bit bigger down on this original printing than the new one. The price is $125. It is parental advisory. It's still parental advisory, and then down here is what the contents are. Now comes the moment when we look at them under the dust jacket. So the original printing has the classic stamp here with the title, and then the classic Marvel stamp logo. This is what the Marvel Masterworks still use with this fall leather, whereas the new printing has art on the front board and the back board. And the Man-Thing. So this is the Frank Brunner cover, in case you're wondering if you're going to get both covers. It looks like you are. This is the direct market cover by Frank Brunner, and then the Ariel Olivetti cover on the back there, which is the standard edition cover. So let's put this away for now and then come back to it to do a comparison in a little bit. Let's open this up and talk a little bit about who Man-Thing is and what the story is about. So let's go ahead and get this opened. We have some black bookend pages there. The Man-Thing Omnibus. Here's what it collects, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through these pages. Here's the table of contents, all the creators here on the left, and then kicking it off with the Savage Tales #1. And of course, sadly, this is just a one-issue thing because the book got canceled. It was an anthology series that were featuring monsters. And really quick, I'll give you a quick synopsis of what this is about. We are introduced to the character of Professor or Dr. Theodore Salas, or Ted Salas, and his girlfriend, who later on gets retconned into becoming, I think, his fiancée or his wife. So this is Ellen Brandt. And he is trying to work on a secret formula for the government. And the secret formula that he's working on kind of is a reproduction of the super soldier serum that gave Captain America his powers. So he's figured it out, he's cracked the code, and his lady friend betrays him, or his wife later on betrays him, sells him out to AIM. They come and beat the crap out of him. Meanwhile, he gets away, though. He's able to get away because he's not just a doctor, but he also kicks some ass. And his way of thinking is he's the only one that knows the serum. He's the only one that knows the formula. He rips everything apart and burns everything so nobody can get their hands on it. And the one syringe that he has, he injects into his body. And he's like, I'm going to become something special. And he crashes his car into the swamp, and out comes Man-Thing. That's pretty much the origin of Swamp Thing, and he's able to burn people with his touch. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second, but let's talk about what else this collects. So this collects Astonishing Tales 12 and 13, Fear, or Venture into Fear 11 through 19, Man-Thing, from the 1974 series, 1 through 22. Giant-Sized Man-Thing, 1, 2, and 3. I feel ridiculous even saying that, but that's what they called it. And I think it was a joke in editorials, too, whenever they were like, hey, you got that Giant-Sized Man-Thing? Anyway, where was I? Giant-Sized Man-Thing 1, 2, and 3 from the 74 series. Incredible Hulk 197 and 198. Marvel Team-Up 68. Marvel 2 and 1 43. Man-Thing, the 1979 series 1 through 11. Doctor Strange 41. And then materials from, like I said, Savage Tales, the very first issue. Fear number 10. Giant-Sized Man-Thing 4 through 5. And that's not collected in whole because the other stories were like Howard the Duck stories or other monster stories. And then Monsters Unleashed 5, 8, and 9, and Rampaging Hulk number 7. So one of the things you're probably noticing is what happened to the transition here in this issue of Khazar. So this is Astonishing Tales that features Khazar, number 12. And what happened was, since Savage Tales number 1 got canceled, or after one issue it got canceled, they had this story by Roy Thomas and Neil Adams. Or I'm sorry, not Roy Thomas, Len Wein and Neil Adams. And they were like, well, let's sit on it. And they waited a year until they can put it in somewhere. And they put it in this Khazar story. So the transition is really weird because we go from here, Man-Thing and Khazar with these colors, to these yellow tones. It's not, and you can tell that this was a different story by reading this. You're not going to be like, oh, this perfectly fits in fine. This is just a flashback. But anyway, there's a team up between Khazar and Man-Thing. Now, I said the name Len Wein, and I said the name Jerry Conway. So Jerry Conway, Roy Thomas, Stan Lee, and Gray Morrow are the creators of Man-Thing. And Len Wein did write an issue there with Neil Adams. And you probably know that name because he is the creator at the distinguished competition of a certain swamp creature. Swamp Thing. And this is one thing I've always heard is like, which came first, Man-Thing or Swamp Thing? One is ripping off the other. They have to be. Because ironically enough, both of them came out within months of each other. I think Man-Thing came out in May, and then by July, Swamp Thing was out in the same year, 1971. The most interesting thing about that is that Jerry Conway, one of the creators of Man-Thing, was roommates with Len Wein, who is one of the creators of Swamp Thing. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of rumors even back then of how both people were able to sell the same kind of character to different companies. But the characters have outgrown that, and they're different enough. Their origins are sort of similar, but they're so different now that they're, like, I don't think most people would get them confused other than visually. So yes, this is Ted Sallis. However, it's not really, not anymore. He's not able to talk. He doesn't have memories. He just works on feelings. It is a creature of just emotions, and that's what came out of the swamp. Now, in the original story, by Jerry Conway and then eventually Roy Thomas, they talk about the origin of him. He's just a guy, like I said, put the super soldier reproduction serum in him and then falls into a lake, and because science and comic book logic, he steps out as Man-Thing, guy that will burn you because you have fear in you. It's not until this gentleman right here, Steve Gerber, the phenomenal Steve Gerber, creator of Howard the Duck, writes in a much deeper philosophical fantasy story where the swamp where Ted Sallis crashed his car is really a nexus, if you will, to this, I don't want to call it a multiverse, but let's just call it different dimensions. And it's never really flat out said that the Nexus needed a protector, but that's kind of what you get from this. You get the idea that, oh, okay, so Man-Thing is the protector of this area that, people are trying to break into, people are trying to manipulate. So as I'm flipping through here, you're probably seeing different types of stories. Because it is hard to tell a story, an ongoing story about a character that has no emotion, can't talk. I'm sorry, it works on emotions, but he can't talk. He has no memory. He's like an empty husk. So it's really the people around his character that you're reading about. And as I'm flipping through here, probably noticing a change in tone. There's a cult. There are people from other worlds that show up because of that nexus, like I said. This is where Howard the Duck first appears. And then sort of gets killed off screen, but no, not really. He survives and ends up, getting his own series and movie. And the movie came out long before the Man-Thing movie. Not that anybody has seen the Man-Thing movie, I don't expect. But this all takes place in Florida, in the Florida Everglades. And just showing off some more of that artwork. So you do have the talents in here of Jim Mooney. You have the talents in here of Val Mayerek. Yeah, this gentleman right here. You probably saw some Jim Starlin in there. Mike Plug also does some of the artwork. But Steve Gerber is the main writer of the 1974 series. He writes all the giant-size issues and takes it all the way to the end of issue 20. Now, there is some stuff in here from Monsters Unleashed, like I mentioned. This is the black and white magazine. But none of this is written by Steve Gerber. And there's a lot of good stories in here from Steve Gerber. This is a read that I did a few years ago in its entirety. When this book first came out, my original copy, I read it cover to cover because I just couldn't put it down. I really was a fan of Steve Gerber, a fan of his Howard the Duck mainly, and then a lot of the stuff that he did at DC. And I had not read all of his Man-Thing stories, but man, they're just so captivating. There's just something unique about the character and just the sadness that lays in him. So as I'm flipping through here, I'm sure you probably noticed that when Man-Thing touches somebody, sometimes it burns them. Like he secretes these acidic things from his hand whenever he touches somebody. And at first it was like that. Anybody he touched, he would burn their face or their body part. But later on, they kind of retconned that into saying that it's anybody that shows fear or strong emotions of just wanting to do ill malice or hurt other people, if you will. There are some great supporting cast, such as the character of... let me see if I can find Jennifer here. There she is, Jennifer Kell. And she shares a psychic link with Man-Thing for a little while, like through these issues of Fear back here. But she is also part of this mystical nexus. Now, she later on shows up in issues of Thunderbolts, and she kind of helps with his voice. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So there are a lot of great issues in here. It's really meta at times, especially issue number 20 of the ongoing series, of the first series. And for anybody that has read it, you probably know what I'm talking about. That was pretty interesting, especially for what I thought at the time. You know, we've seen other writers do that, such as Grant Morrison, but I thought that was really cool. So much to talk about. I just wanted to highlight a few things. This is Giant Size Man-Thing number 2. John Buscema doing some artwork. And John Buscema does some of the artwork within the ongoing series. There is a really good issue. I think it's issue number 12. It's called The Song. Let's see if I can find it. The Song Cry of the Living Dead Man. Now, this is a character that later on Steve Gerber revisits in his miniseries, The Infernal Man-Thing. And it's just a writer that's struggling to tell a story. One of the things that they do is collect some of the covers in between the issues here. So that's really cool. Most of the time in these collections, they have all the extras all the way in the back. Now, as I said, the series ends up... I forgot about this character here too. But as I was saying earlier, the 1974 series ends with Man-Thing number 22. And like I said, it's got a very meta story. Then, because this is a collection of chronological appearances of Man-Thing, he also appears in the issues of Hulk. And then eventually the series comes back. And Chris Claremont is now the ongoing writer on the series. And let me see, this is after the 2-in-1. Here we go. You have Jim Mooney now doing the pencils. And Chris Claremont does something interesting in issue 11 of his ongoing series. Very similar to what Steve Gerber did. But this is what the artwork looks like. Let's go in the back here to look at what extras they did keep for the back. So some house ads back there. And then some other stuff from the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. Then the Ariel Olivetti standard edition cover. Now, there's more stuff that Steve Gerber did after this. He did some stuff for the Marvel Comics Presents, and of course he had the Infernal Man-Thing with Kevin Nolan. However, that was released after he passed away. Let's look at the binding really quick. Alright, so here's the eye, and the book has 1,192 pages. It's a big book. So let's compare it really quick to the original printing. Alright, we have the original printing up at the top and the newer printing here at the bottom. One thing that you could probably tell is the bookend pages, where Marvel used to use these marble-like bookend pages. But let's look at some of this black and white art. Not sure if you can tell, but it looks like just... I don't know, this is kind of hard. It looks like it's just a little bit darker in the original printing than the blacks used here. But let's keep going. Alright, just showing some of the color artwork. By the way, if you are curious about these things, the original printing was printed at the R. Donnelley printer, and the newer printing is printed at the iMac printer in Turkey. So, honestly, the paper quality feels thicker than the original printing. And I'm surprised because iMac, they're the ones that did the Conan by Kurt Busiek, which to me always felt like had the thinnest paper quality for a Marvel Omnibus, but this feels like the newer printing has thicker paper. Let's go to the middle so we can look at the binding here. So of course we have to do a fair comparison, and the only way to do that is with some spread pages. So it looks like, of course, my original copy here, it's been read a couple of times, is laying over better. There's some gutter loss here, not very much. But then again, my eye on my original one, not sure if you can tell from there, it looks a little warped. It's a big eye, but it's had its fair share of love. As far as the colors, though, they look a little more vibrant down here in the newer printing, like the red on that tree, and even Swamp Thing and the yellow down here, and a little bit on him. So let's keep going. Didn't even get to talk about the Fool Killer. He made a first appearance through these pages. Here again, the colors are a little bit lighter on the newer printing, so they are different as far as the color. See what I mean on his face? Looks a little redder up there, and these are the same pages. However, my newer printing is laying over nicer, I think, than my original one. Alright, let's go all the way to the back. Okay, so here is the final issue, but I did want to showcase what the differences are, not just in the color, but the way they're both laying over. You get a little bit of more gutter curve in the newer printing. Not that there's that many spread pages, but I did want to make people aware of that. And I know it's not a deal breaker for most people, but just did want to make people aware of that. As far as the paper quality, I'm not sure if you can tell from here because of the angle, but it looks like you can see more of the art from the Donnelley printer, the first printing, from the opposite page than you can in the newer printing. And that's probably because the paper quality feels thicker than the original, or they're using a different kind of paper than what I'm normally used to them using. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online source for collected editions up to 50% off retail price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on excellent packaging, so your stuff gets to you in excellent condition, and they have amazing customer service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And for all you Minties that are watching, if you're a first-time customer, don't forget to mention that Near Mint Condition sent you their way for a promotional credit on free shipping on your next order. Now, this is only for U.S. customers. CheapGraphicNovels.com, your source for the hottest books with deep discounts, customer service, and excellent shipping that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the page count, the build, and the content of this omnibus, as well as the comparison to the original printing. Let me know in the comments down below if I was able to explain a little bit about what Man-Thing is or who he is. And if you're going to pick this up, if you've read this stuff, what you think of Steve Gerber's classic stuff. Do you think we should have another OHC collection featuring Steve Gerber's run on Marvel Comics Presents, as well as the Infernal Man-Thing to wrap up his entire story with Ted Sallis? Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. We put out videos every day. And more importantly, everyone, please stay healthy, stay safe, and much love.